Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to live your greatest life, then do we have the top 5 regrets of the dying show for you. Today I'll be talking with Bronnie Ware, author, speaker, musician, and songwriting teacher, and the author of a brilliant, life-changing book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about living without regrets and a life transformed by the dearly departed. That, plus we'll talk about morning bird songs and dish pigs, swimming with a platypus, golden orb spiders and frangipani trees, Jeep endings on a 6-lane highway, the power of sun showers, beneath Australian skies and Ozark mountain daredevils, what on earth is a rice bubble, and why in the world you never ever want to throw out that pink dress. Yay. So welcome to the show, Bronnie. Are you ready to shine?
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you. What a start.
We are going to have fun today. Before we dive right into things, you're in LA right now. Did you ever imagine that you would write a book, a second book, your first book would be translated into 27 languages, and that you'd travel all over the world?
I sort of did imagine it, but I didn't know that it would be. I've actually written 3 books now, and they're in 29 languages. Yeah, but I always felt I had a message to share and that it would reach a large audience. And I always dreamt of doing a lot of travel. I just didn't know that I'd be blessed for them to align and be the same thing.
So beautiful. And if we go back in time, before there was writing, what can you tell us about your first love, music?
Well, I was a singer-songwriter before I became an author, and I actually started off as a nature photographer, and I wrote inspirational quotes that I sold with my photos. And then, in the frustration of trying to get a small book of that published, I picked up my guitar and started writing a song. And in those days, I only had a guitar because I thought it was cool, and I didn't realize that it was actually was to become a huge part of who I am. And yeah, so I became a singer-songwriter, and that eventually led me in a very long and roundabout way to becoming an author.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it was interesting when I was reading in your book about your photography book. And sorry, I didn't include that as one of your books. I was thinking about my photography book, which I made many years ago after my first NDE, and worked to get published, and then ended up having all sorts of color issues and pulled back, and it has not been printed as well.
Yeah, sometimes we just create things, the things that come through us are more for us than for other people. And there did come a time that I actually gave away my first book on my website as an opt-in. It was called A Little Something. That was the photography book. But now I just enjoy it. The fact that it brought me to who I am now, that's enough for me.
Beautiful. So on this journey to who you are now, you got into the banking world for quite a few years. How did you find your way into banking, out of banking, and then writing a blog?
Gosh, I banking was just a sensible job I went into straight out of school, and I was very restless, so I traveled a lot, and as a result, I could always pick up a banking job in a new town. And I actually went up the banking ladder quite fast because I'd worked for so many different banks and was willing to do any job. But I was desperately unhappy with that. And eventually I found myself as a carer looking after dying people. And because I wanted to break free of the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 world, and I did some years in hospitality in between that. And from looking after dying people, that then led me to meeting a woman who helped me to get songwriting. And so while I was looking after dying people, I started becoming a singer-songwriter. And after quite a few years of looking after dying people, I wanted to work where there was some hope again. And I got this idea to set up a songwriting program in a women's jail. And through one of my patients, I met a woman who helped me find funding to do that. And from that, while I was trying to get that set up, I was at a music festival, and an editor of a music magazine said to me, if you get it set up, write us an article and we'll publish it about how it is that you're teaching songwriting in a jail. And so that happened. I got the program set up and started teaching in the jail, and I wrote an article for this music magazine. And after I finished writing the article, I thought to myself, why aren't I writing more? Why aren't I writing more? You know,
Yeah.
I love writing. I'd always had pen friends when I was a young child, a young girl, and so I thought I'll start a blog. And what will I write about? And I got very clear guidance through write what you know. And I thought, okay, well, I've just finished working with dying people. I'll write about what had the most profound effect on me while I was working with them, and that was the regrets. And so I wrote that article, and then I just kept writing about things that inspired me. And then about 6 months after I wrote the article, it actually took off. And I wasn't ready for that level of publicity 6 months earlier. And yeah, and so from that led to being signed to an agent to write a book, and then the book was rejected. The proposal was rejected by 25 publishers, and so I decided, well, I'll just put it out myself then. I've written this story, and I always felt I had a story to tell. I just didn't realize that it was so entwined with my years looking after dying people. And so it took off independently. And then in the same 24 hours as my daughter was born, I was doing interviews from my hospital bed, and because the book took off ridiculously, and I sent out a very...
You are a trooper, I have got to say.
You just got to get on with it, haven't you? You know, and because I'd worked in banking for so long, I knew I didn't want to go back to that. So I'd sort of felt like, you burn your boats, you don't want to go back. So I had to keep going forward. And I closed my computer while I was in labour. I closed my computer the night before my daughter was born, and I just said a very strong prayer, which was a little bit more like a demand, to be honest. And it was like, send me some help now, because I am ready to quit. It's been 14 years that I've been trying to make my work happen, and I'm 45 years old. I've been blessed to conceive this child naturally and quickly. This is my only chance to be a mother. I'm going to be a mother. I'm going to quit my work if I don't get some help now. And I meant it, because I was just I wanted to be a mum. I wanted to be present. And within 24 hours, I received a phone call from Hay House, my dream publishing house, offering me an international publishing deal. And I think within 3 months, Hay House had become the fastest foreign rights seller in Hay House history. So that sort of led me onto a whole new direction.
Absolutely amazing. And you may not have realized it, but you just gave us, I don't even know what the word for it is, inspiration, a treat, a something, because my wife is the producer of our show. We just found out 2.5 weeks ago she's pregnant.
Oh, fantastic.
And there is no way, well, let's not say no way. It would be extremely challenging to run the show with her as mama and not producer, and no producer on the show. And so we're putting it out there to the universe, we're going to need some serious assistance while she's a mama, because that's got to be number one priority. So I love what you just shared.
Yeah, timing's a powerful thing as well. Yeah.
It is. So let's go from there. Let's dive into some of these stories in your beautiful story, which is part regrets of the dying, and is also a big part a memoir of, you tag these things or sew them together beautifully, of what you've been learning in your life and the mirror that is all these amazing people coming into your life. And through this door, I guess, maybe we can start with from the beginning in the book. Let's start with who, and the names I believe have been changed. Agnes.
She was actually my first experience of hanging out with an older person, and I was looking after her when I was in England, and we just lived in a little caravan and in the snow, and it was freezing, and yeah, she was a darling, and it was more companionship on a cattle farm we lived.
How did you get the job to work with her?
it was just advertised in my local in the local paper. I was hanging out. I was at the time in a relationship with an Englishman, and I wanted to stay near him, but I wanted to save some money. It was just advertised in a local paper, and they said, "Okay, we've got an Australian. She's a farm girl, perfect," and simple as that.
Beautiful. And so going from Agnes, how'd you end up in 24-hour care and working for Ruth?
I came back to Australia, and I just knew I couldn't go back to banking, which is what I'd been doing before. I went overseas for a few years, and yeah, so I just looked for a live-in job. I didn't want any care. I didn't want any rent. I didn't want a mortgage, and I wanted what I thought would be a bit of freedom in my time to start pursuing my music and creative endeavors. And so I just approached an agency and said I'd done companionship work, and it just went from there. They just jumped at it because there weren't that many people that wanted live-in work, and so I started working with Ruth, and then she became terminally ill while I was working with her, and she'd just been sent home from hospital on the proviso that she had to have someone there with her, otherwise she had to stay in hospital. And yeah, so her illness was already there, but it hadn't been diagnosed as terminal. And I just started looking after her as a companion, and then she became more and more ill, and then it became clear, it was diagnosed that she was actually dying, and I was asked to stay on and look after her.
Excellent. Well, not excellent, if you know what I mean. It's a
Yeah.
strange way to put it. However, you say some very profound things in this part of the book. You say, our society has shut death out, almost as a denial of its existence. This denial leaves both the dying person and the family or friends totally unprepared for something that is inevitable. What can you tell us about this?
Well, if we just face the fact that we're going to die, it wouldn't be such an isolating time for the dying person, and it wouldn't be such a scary time for the family. It would just be every everyday conversation, because you see in some countries like India, for example, death is just such an acceptable part of the process, whereas in Australia, in the States, in a lot of countries, we don't talk about it. Everyone's too scared to. And if we can face the fact that we're going to die, which we are, and you certainly know a little bit about that yourself, quite a lot about that yourself, that then we realize how precious and sacred our life is, and our time is, and we let go of all of the things that hold us back, because none of it matters in the end. We're on limited time, and that for me, facing death has been one of my greatest tools for living, because I know I'm on limited time, and that gives me courage to let go of so much stuff that may have hindered me, if I hadn't faced death.
And facing that mortality, you say that it means we're less driven by ego, and we've got to really drop from ego into the heart to live a different way, don't we?
Oh yes, absolutely, and to let go of what other people think of you, which is ego, and to actually allow ourselves the space to hear our hearts as well.
Thank you. What does surrender mean to you?
Surrender is it has shaped my life so much. It's letting go of control. It's a I was going to say it's a leap of faith, but it's not even a leap. It's just a gentle step into faith to say, okay, I don't know what to do now. I've given this everything I've got.
Mhm.
I've tried, I've followed all my guidance to this point, and I've reached a place where I don't know what to do. I'm going to hand this over to the greater source, to divinity, to God, to life, whatever you choose to call this. I'm going to hand this over because I trust that life knows my needs better than I know them myself. And I'm just going to let go of control here and let life guide me now.
When you get to a difficult moment or almost a dark night of the soul, it takes a lot of courage actually to go to surrender in that moment. has it become easier after all the people that you've worked with, or all of the magic, because you have followed, well, one of my coaching clients calls it the divine breadcrumb. You have followed the divine breadcrumb and seen where it goes. Has it become easier to go, I'm just going to surrender and allow?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's it's like anything, we get better with practice. Um and every time I'm called to surrender, where I reach that wall where I think, oh, okay, this is clearly not working. I need to let go here. It still can be scary, but less and less so, because whenever I surrender at some stage, and it's never as immediate as we want to demand it to be, but at some stage when I surrender, I land on my feet in a way that I could never have imagined, or the solution comes in a way that I could never have imagined. And when that happens, I always laugh to myself and I think, how could I have ever doubted this? And yet I do. It's part of my humanness that I doubt it. But my faith gets stronger and stronger and stronger each time, and that in itself is a little bit of a magic pill, because even if I'm called to surrender something, and I'm in a hard place and I'm losing my faith, and all I can really pull on is a little glimmer of hope. Deep down, I know that this has happened before and I've landed on my feet, and I don't know how this is going to happen, and I wish it would happen right now, and it's not going to happen right now. But I know that I will land on my feet, that the solution will come in a way that is so absolutely perfect for me that I couldn't have even imagined it. And so that gives me confidence to surrender each time, an increasing confidence with every level of surrender. And it is a deepening of surrender.
Isn't it crazy how the further we go down the rabbit hole, and you have seen, in a sense, many miraculous experiences, many, we'll call them spiritual experiences, that in the moment that the light is out, it's so easy to have faith, it's so easy to believe, it's so easy to trust. But then in that dark moment, it's like there's so much self-doubt and doubt about the mechanism of the universe, and it's like we have temporary amnesia, isn't it?
Yeah, we forget that life's actually on our side, and loves us dearly, and the only thing that's creating these lessons is our resistance to shine. Mm.
So let's go from there, and thank you. And let's talk about regret number one. And I want to talk about Grace's story. And regret number one, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Can you tell us about Grace?
Grace was tiny, a tiny little woman, but so fierce in her regret that when she was speaking to me about it, she was almost crushing my hand with ferocity, because she was just so heartbroken. Um, Grace had stayed in an incredibly unhappy marriage, a terribly unhappy marriage, and her husband, she called him a tyrant. And she didn't have huge dreams in the sense of wanting to, change the world or be super famous or any of that stuff. She just wanted to do a little bit of travel around Australia, and he didn't want to do any of that. And so he became ill and he was put into a nursing home. And for the first time in her life, she was actually free. And so she started daring to dream and think about travel again, just to do a tour of some of Australia or do a bus tour or whatever. But within a few weeks of that, of him going into the nursing home, she became ill, and she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, terminal lung cancer. And he'd been a very heavy smoker, and she hadn't smoked at all in her life. And so she actually never left her house again, let alone got to do any of the things she wanted to. Yeah, from when she was diagnosed, she went downhill so fast, and I was called in to be her carer, and we connected very quickly. My grandmother was a very small but fierce woman as well, and perhaps it was that. She also loved my music, and so we had that connection. And Yeah, and so she made me promise her that I would be courageous and live a life true to myself, not a life expected of me, because she had stayed in that marriage based on society's expectations, and certainly her generation did that a lot more, and worried what the neighbours would think, worried, how it would affect her adult children who only wanted her to be happy. They were a beautiful family, beautiful children. Um, yeah, and so she went and died with, in her last weeks, she was consumed with regret for not having had the courage to live a life true to herself, not the life others expected of her, and made me promise and commit to her that I would not do the same. And I did make that commitment and promise to her, and have been committed to it ever since. Not only for Grace, but because I know I've witnessed her pain of regret, and there's no way I can be shown that anguish and that pain and not be affected by it. There's no way I'm letting myself go down that road.
So is it very clear when you see X or Y? Actually, you say that we do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure.
Yeah, well, that's something that I learned through Tony Robbins, and a long, long time ago, and it just shaped me completely. And it's so true. I mean, I've heard psychologists say it all over the place since that we do. It's only when life becomes so painful that we actually that we can find the courage to make change, because we want to avoid pain more than we can actually allow ourselves love. To love ourselves enough sometimes takes us breaking through the pain.
Well, you say along those terms, the most important thing you've ever learned is that compassion and therefore love starts with yourself.
Absolutely. That was a really great lesson for me. I was doing a lot of meditating on the Vipassana path, and I love Vipassana meditation. And it was through that I started to really develop compassion for some members in my family who had really dumped a lot of their pain and cruelty on me in my upbringing and in my young adult years, and I needed to heal that part of myself. And so I was developing compassion for them, but I was still struggling with aspects of myself, and it was only through realizing one day when sitting in meditation, hang on a sec, I can't have true compassion for them if I don't have true compassion for myself and for my brokenness and my own tender heart. And that was so painful to allow. And but the more I worked on that, and the more I allowed my own compassion to be received, it's easy enough, well, semi-easy enough, to give yourself compassion, but to actually receive your own compassion and receive your own love takes a heck of a lot more courage and vulnerability. And once I reached that point, then I actually witnessed the power of compassion in all of my relationships, because it just went to a whole new level.
Wow. And there's a freedom in that. I picture you holding the hand of your 7-year-old self when you're
Mm.
faced with the decision that you either go one way, scary, no regret, you go the other way, you do what is expected of you and you have regret, and you're holding her hand. You may even take her and put your arms around her and say, "It's going to be okay. I feel your pain. We're going to do this together. We're going to be all right."
Yeah, and as a mother of a 6.5-year-old girl, um, I resonate with that so much, Michael, because I have done a lot of this work of revisiting my own inner child and the little girl who I was, and saying exactly that, and just saying you are enough, and you've done nothing wrong. This is just someone else's pain that's been dumped on you. And so when I see my little girl Eleanor, and I see her vulnerability um, and the power that a parent has over a child, in shaping a child, because they take everything you say so literally, that I already have immense compassion for myself as a parent and immense compassion for her as a child, because I realised that I'm not perfect and I'm doing the best job I can as a mum, but the more I can revisit myself at her age and heal that self, the better I am as a mum for her. And yeah, we have to revisit our childhood, whether we're blessed to do so through being a parent or whether we're just doing some very conscious inner child work. We have to go back and say that we are enough and that we've done nothing wrong. Yeah.
So there's I think it was a much later chapter of the book. I believe it was Joseph and Charlie, if I get that right,
Mm.
where he had to say just that to help his son to heal and help his son to be able to let go, not of him, but to be able to let go of regrets and guilt so that he could move forward in his own life.
Yeah, Charlie, that was about the simplicity, keeping life simple, and yeah, and his son was just trying so hard to prove himself to his dad and to the world, and but Charlie had never actually told his son that he'd loved him. He'd shown him, but he'd never told him, and his son needed to hear it. And even as an adult with his own children, it wasn't until he actually heard Charlie say, "I love you and I'm proud of you," that he was actually able to allow himself some pleasure in life and take the pressure off himself.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
If we go to another younger, we're going to go to a younger client of yours. I always talk about it's use it or lose it, and it's all about who you surround yourself with and the environment you surround
Mhm.
yourself with. What can you tell us about Anthony?
He was cheeky. He was cheeky, but he lived a very reckless life and paid the price for that in injuries that he caused himself. And he had high expectations on himself. He was the oldest son of a very wealthy family, expected to take over the business, and just rebelled against all of that. He hung out in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which was is a very wealthy area, in gangs and playing cat and mouse with the police and using cricket bats and goodness knows what else to get his power. And I'm saying cricket bats in terms of violence and fighting.
Yeah.
Horrific stuff, and yet he was a good guy. He just was so lacking in self-worth and in the expectations, that were under pressure from the expectations of his family. And so he basically guaranteed that he wouldn't have to live up to their expectations, and ended up losing some limbs and ended up in a nursing home at a really young age, and yeah, ended up dying in the nursing home and never actually being who he could be, and admitting that he was glad that this had happened to him because at least he had a good excuse not to have to live up to the expectations of others. Mm.
What did he teach you?
Oh, he he taught me that you've got to try. He just taught me that, you know, that if you hang out in the wrong environments for too long, you're going to become a part of that environment. He gave up his will to live because he was hanging out with elderly people, and he gave up that complete will and just how much our environment can shape us, and to make conscious choices about who we hang out with and who we give our energy to, because our environment shapes us enormously.
You say conscious choices. Thank you. Conscious choices means how mindful do we have to be of the life we're creating?
To bring as much mindfulness as humanly possible, and that's a practice as well that you get better and better over time with. And if you stumble through life without bringing awareness to the choices you're making, then you're really not driving your own life. You're just going to crash into one wall after another. And so bringing mindfulness to your decision-making processes is absolutely necessary to bring yourself to your best life and your best self.
Thank you. And since you're talking about best life and best self, you're talking about best life for you. How would you define success for yourself or for any of us?
Knowing that you're being courageous enough to live the life that makes sense to you, regardless of how you're perceived by others. Because if you're doing that, you will be called to serve others anyway.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that sort of noble intent to start with, and that's okay. Some people just want to be free of the things that hold them back, or just want to be free of the pain they carry, or just want to step out of society's conditioning. And that's all perfect and fine, because if that's what your heart guides you to do, fine. The more you can honor that, the more you then hear your heart, and the more it will then call you to serve anyway. So it's not actually a selfish act to honor your own heart. It's what you have to do to become your best self. And some people straight away know, I want to serve the world, I want to change the world, I want to teach, I want to share this message, whatever. But it doesn't actually, and some people actually feel guilty because they don't feel that way. But it doesn't matter. I mean, that yearning to live your happiest life is the yearning, and that will call you to serve others anyway, because once you're living your happiest life, you naturally develop a sense of purpose and get called to share and to teach.
And there's much more of a sense of trust. You have lived your life, at least since your banking days, you have lived your life this way in a very powerful and profound way. And here you are changing hundreds of thousands, if not millions. It must be millions of lives at this point. And if well, I guess your parents got it, but if others outside of your family looked at your life, they would have said, "What are you doing?"
Well, yeah, they all did. My mum got it, Dad didn't to start with. Excuse me. Excuse me. Had to be on interview day. I get a frog in my throat.
No worries.
My dad read my book not long before he died, and he was able to. He told all his friends to buy it and said it was amazing and everything else. But Dad didn't have the communication channel to be able to share a lot of that with me. He shared it with all his friends, and they shared it with me. But certainly most of my life, my dad and some of my siblings were like, what are you doing? You've changed jobs again? You're moving towns? Or, what? When are you going to settle down? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? When are you, and all these things, and they just couldn't understand me. And I was still struggling to understand myself, but I knew that I was searching and I was seeking, and that the life they were living did not make sense to me. And eventually, obviously, I found out that I was a creative person. I wasn't a corporate person, and thank goodness that was just such an awakening, and it took so much undoing of my conditioning to allow myself to step into that and fully own it. And thank goodness I did, because you're right, my work has reached millions of people, and I hate to imagine what I would have done without courage and without the lessons at dying people that I learned through hanging out with dying people.
Woohoo! It's strange to woohoo after dying people, but you're living your life full, open-hearted, stepping forward with courage, even in the scariness of it.
Yes, because I can't ever let myself live with the pain of regret. Because not just at my dying time, if I'm blessed to have time for reflection, and not everyone does. I mean, some people, die instantly. But I cannot allow myself regret at all in everyday life, because I've witnessed how it just destroys great people, beautiful, good-hearted people. And I've had enough of a hard time in my life. I'm not going to let myself have regret as well. I'm not adding that to some of the hard lessons I've had. Regret for me, I've been blessed with witnessing it over and over and over for about 8 years. And so I've seen the pain and I've felt the pain enough to know that there is no way I'm going to indulge in that myself. No matter how much courage I need to make a decision that will avoid regret, it's never going to be as painful as lying on my deathbed with regret.
Thank you. So let's go into regret number 2 and talk about John and his wife Margaret and I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
So Margaret wanted to go traveling and John wanted to keep working, and he really depended on his status a lot as his identity, his work status. And he eventually agreed to retire and go traveling, but in that time his wife Margaret became ill and actually died. And so he lived with that regret, and it was very painful for him. He was a dear man, charming and lovely and a dear guy, but he just wanted to get the point across that work is not everything, that it is okay to love your life, but it is not to love your work, to love your work, but it is not everything, that we need to leave room and space for other parts of our life, because when you take away work, if work is your whole life, then what's left? There's nothing. And so balance is what's important, and it's not about this perfect act of balance, because we can never really get that. Life's ever changing, and so we can never get that exact perfect equilibrium and keep it that way forever. There's always going to be shuffling and juggling and decision making to honor that balance. But yes, he taught me very much about not overworking, no matter how much you like your work.
It sounds like he would have done anything to gone back in time when Margaret was still around and given her the gift of time and presence and joy that she had asked for.
Yes. Yes. His regret was real. Yeah.
So we talked about what success means. What is purpose and intention to you?
Purpose is feeling like you're making a difference in the world, whether that's as a parent or planting a garden that brings other people joy. It doesn't have to be grand, but it's about feeling like you're contributing to the world in a positive way. Intention is the planting of a seed of the direction that you want to go. That's how I see it. That when I set an intention, when I intend to do something, it's like, okay, that's the planting of it. Now I just have to keep nurturing it and watering that seed and bring enough sunshine in and give it everything it needs, trusting that it will grow, with that love and with that attention. It's not up to me to grow it and say what form it has to take. It's up to me to nurture that intention and be courageous enough to do that.
Thank you. I like to say that universe happens through you and for you, never to you. So if regret is a poison pill, what about painting ourselves as a victim?
Well, we can do that, and I certainly did it a lot in my younger years, because it gets compassion from people and it gets mercy. But it doesn't benefit us. It's really tiring. It's really tiring. Everyone could be a victim. Everyone has suffered, and everyone still carries pain to be healed. So every single person could be a victim, but life doesn't owe us anything. And as you've just said, it's there for us. It's not happening to us. It's there for us. And the more we can realize that and step out of victim mode, the more we actually embrace the blessings that are being offered to us, and we rise instead of holding ourselves down.
Thank you. So speaking about rising above victimhood, I have got to ask, let's talk about simplicity real briefly. How did your Jeep end its life in spectacular fashion?
I was trying to sell it at one stage, and I was really worried that I wouldn't get any money for it or how I'd sell it, because a few things were starting to go wrong. And I very clearly in my mind, I heard the words, "Don't worry." And so I just thought, okay, the time will come, it'll be all right. And on a very, very hot day, I was driving on the freeway to Sydney from up north and driving up this hill, and yeah, it just died. I can't remember what it was, but a plug came out and the motor basically just died in 2 seconds flat. I'm just driving along, singing along, boom, the car's died. I've just pulled over because I was going up a hill and the power just went. I thought I'm going to start rolling backwards any minute. I just pulled over and that was it. And I ended up selling it for spare parts for almost as much as I would have received had I spent a lot of energy trying to sell it as a working vehicle, because it had a winch on it, it had a bull bar on it, it had it had a lot of good extras on it, and so that was the end of an era, and it happened very quickly, and then a new car came to me in about 1 second flat.
So the rice bubble, you went from sleeping in the back of a Jeep to something you could barely fit 5 crates in, if I understand right.
That's right. No back seat. It was like a little Mr. Bean car, and and I called it the rice bubble, which I think in some countries, right, like what we call rice bubbles in Australia is rice puffs in some countries. It's a breakfast cereal. And so I went from, I mean, the rice bubble wouldn't have even come up to half of the height of the Jeep, and it was a great little car though. It took me everywhere, but you couldn't sleep in it, even though I had to a few times, and that was not so fun. Yeah.
What's simplicity mean to you?
Space. Space is my greatest medicine. I've found that to leave space allows you to hear your heart. It allows you to breathe. It allows blessings to come your way that you won't see if you're too busy. So by making a commitment to simplicity, it means making conscious choices. Is this going to complicate my life, or is it going to keep it simple? Is it going to add a burden to my life? Simplicity is not having too many belongings at all. It doesn't mean discomfort. I have enough belongings. I have a house now with belongings. But even my daughter knows that if she wants new toys, that something else has to go. And so we don't accumulate, and she's learnt to let go. Simplicity is just about the beauty of life. You look at nature, and it can be really complicated from some angles, but you can also look at it how simple and beautiful and perfect it is, and use that as an example of how we can live our own lives. So simplicity and space are completely intertwined for me.
I love it. And so space also means not just we're talking about a geographic, we're talking temporal, pauses between the notes.
Yes, absolutely. And not making too many plans, and realizing that we actually get more done by leaving space than trying to force things and fitting too much in, because when we do that, we're coming from a place of fear and control. Whereas when we dare to surrender and leave space, the solutions come to us and give us shortcuts. And when we do work and have to take and are called to take action, we do so with so much more efficiency than if we're just forcing and pushing all the time.
It sounds like something that you've been really good at with money in your life, which is not trying to push or force or drive with the gas mashed to the floor, saying, I've got to be in this fear-based place of lack. I've got to work, or it's just not going to appear and I'm going to be doomed.
I've had my fair share of lessons with money, as we all do. But I really love, what book was it? I think it was Nothing is Too Good to Be True by John Randolph Price. And it says that money is a feminine energy that wants to dance with you.
I love it.
And same. And so there's been times when I've just, been trying to control how it's got to come. And then I remember that, and I just allow again and let go. And I have been blessed with money coming from goodness knows where at the time I need it. And so much of our money decisions are based on fear, because we don't need money until we need it. And so once you learn to surrender and trust, you know the money will come before you need it. It may not come more than a day or 2 or 3 before you need it, but you don't need it before then. And so if you've got something to pay and you trust that the money, and you fully trust, which is a practice as well, that the money comes, then it does. It always comes before, in time. It always comes in time if you're not caught up in the lack and the blocking it and everything else. So, yeah, I've had some amazing miracles with money where I've been out on a leap of faith and I've had no idea how I was going to survive, and the money's come. The money has come through the most random sources, and yeah, it does.
I love how you had a recording studio booked, the artists booked, you're ready to record, the producer's ready to go. Where's the money?
And it's Friday and we're due to start on Monday, and the producer was a family man. He couldn't afford the time off his other job. I had to pay him. He had a family to support, but I knew in my heart it was the right time. That was when I was recording my first album, Sun Showers, and I had no idea, and I'd been trying to will it to me, and I was out on this huge leap of faith, and I needed $5,000. This is 11 years ago. So it's a lot of money, and I needed that. I had other musicians lined up as well, and finally on the Friday night, Friday afternoon, I was just devastated because I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was terrified. I wasn't just scared. I was absolutely terrified that I was going to have to cancel the recording and how I was going to manage. And so a friend rang and said, "Let's go out." And I was going to go somewhere else that night, but I said, "Yeah, sure, okay." We went out. I met up with a friend of hers. We got chatting. One thing led to another. She asked where I was at in my life, and I said, I don't want to tell you. It's so depressing and scary right now that I just can't. I just want to ignore it for tonight. And she said, "No, come on, tell me." And so I told her, and she said, "Well, I've always wanted to support the arts, and my husband wouldn't let me. And I'm going through a really awful divorce right now, and I've got a lot of money, and now's the time to support the arts. How much do you need?" I said 5,000 in tears. I said $5,000. I almost said like, "Oh, 2 will do," but I knew I had to just tell her the truth, and I said $5,000. She said, "I'll see you on Monday. I'll be there with the cash Monday morning." So she arrived about half an hour before everyone else arrived with an envelope and $5,000 exactly. Like, oh, thank you, life. Yeah. So yeah, bless her. I'll always be so grateful. Yeah.
So let's go from there. Let's talk real briefly about regret number 3. Maybe you can tell us briefly about Joseph and "I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings."
Yeah, Joseph had been in a concentration camp, and and his wife had as well, and they came to Australia and created a new life after the war. And he'd never. They didn't talk about it anymore. He didn't express his feelings. He also had the regret of working too hard, but his biggest regret was that his family chose not to tell him he was dying, and he knew he was dying, and so he spoke to me about it. He knew intuitively and physically that he was dying, but his family just pretended it wasn't happening, and he wanted to be able to talk with them and express how he was feeling to them. And I offered to act as a medium, to get that conversation going. But he just said, "No, it's too late. We don't have that communication channel." His wife continued to pretend to him like she brought in huge meals, even though he was just eating half a tub of yogurt by then. And she's saying, "Come on, eat up, Joseph. You'll get better soon." And he knew he was dying. He asked me, and I had to tell him the truth. I wasn't going to deny it to him. And and so he died without he died feeling like his family never truly knew him, because he'd never allowed them to, and never developed the communication channel for that to be possible.
It's one of the things I work with a lot of coaching clients. It's something I've worked with myself in my relationship with Jessica, which is leaning forward even when a conversation's going to be difficult. And you know it's going to be difficult, leaning forward and saying, I have to express my feelings. I have to share.
Yeah, and it takes so much courage to be vulnerable. And sometimes after we've been vulnerable, we want to backtrack and take some of it back, and just cover our tracks
Yeah.
a bit and say, oh, well, I didn't, and just find ways to lessen the vulnerability that we've shared. But there's immense freedom in it. And we're all the same. We're all in this together. We're all broken. We're all vulnerable. We're all incredibly beautiful and radiant underneath. We're all of that. And the more we can dare to allow our vulnerability to be expressed, then the more honest our relationships. And that's what the third regret was. I wish, from Joseph and others, that I wish I'd had the courage to express to be honest in expressing my feelings.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm.
Jessica, she always wants me to ask a question about parents and their kids. I think I want to ask several here. First
Okay.
off, what lessons have you learned from this experience that you want to teach your daughter about?
That it's okay to be yourself. That's probably the thing that I work the hardest on, is allowing her spirit
Yeah.
to be remained as untainted as possible, not caring what people think of my parenting, not caring what people think of her full expression, that it's natural to cry and that she's safe to express herself. She's allowed to be angry. We have different methods to express the anger, like, punching pillows or, through attachment play, which is a really great book that I read. It gives the example of pillow fights, like let the child be in control, give the child a pillow, and you have a pillow fight, but you let the child win. So,
I love
if
it.
she needs to, yeah. So, and I'll be like, please, oh, don't hit me, don't hit me, please, don't hit me. Oh, you're hitting me. And by the end of it, her anger's expressed. She's giggling, we're cuddling, everything's great. I think because I've been so shaped by regrets myself that it's even an unconscious thing now, that almost everything I do in my parenting is reflected, is some sort of reflection of the years I spent with dying people, because I want my child to be as free as she possibly can, to be who she is, and that's probably the driving force of my parenting style.
It's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
What are you teaching her about happiness or the importance of happiness?
Well, I tell her that happiness is, that we are full of joy. I mean, she is so full of joy. She's the sort of kid that lights up a room because she's so funny and she's so strong in her personality. But I tell her that all of us get sad and all of us get angry as well, and that happiness is a part of life, and but all of the emotions are valid, and that we don't have to be happy all the time. And when we're happy, let's live it fully. We go to trampoline parks, we ride push bikes together. We do a lot of fun stuff, like, we maintain the fun in our family. And but children are naturally happy. It's only when they start losing their shine through the conditioning and the opinions of others that they actually separate from that natural born happiness.
And we need to keep on that path toward happiness as well, don't we?
Oh yeah, yeah, and to allow ourselves to be happy as an example for the children, because it doesn't matter what you say to your children, they're going to do what you do, not what you say. And so sometimes, I'll do something and she'll say, like it'll say no exit out of a petrol station, and I'll say, oh, oops, oh well, never mind. I'm going to go. Yeah, I've got to go out this way. And she'll say, but Mummy, you're not allowed to. I'll say, I'm Bronnie Ware. I can do what I like, darling. You can do what you like as long as it's safe, and and just let her know that some rules are there for safety, but some rules are just other people's opinions, and that it's okay to be happy, and it's okay to do things in a way that makes sense to her, even if it doesn't make sense to other people.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
On the happiness theme, what is Sun Showers and Songs for the Soul?
They're my two albums. Sun Showers is the first one, the one that this beautiful angel called Risa paid for, and it's really vulnerable. I was listening to a lot of Lucinda Williams at the time, and it's like, well, if Lucinda can write about longing, I can write about longing. So there's probably an equal number of sad songs as optimistic songs, and that's a part of who I am, that I always manage to find blessings in disguise. So there's some really hopeful, happy tunes there. I was really new to the music game then, and I hear that album, and I can hear so much vulnerability in it, because I was quite broken myself then. But I love that about the album. And Songs for the Soul was the songs were written in between Sun Showers and having my baby, and then when the book took off, the first thing I did with the advance was recorded Songs for the Soul, because I thought, okay, I'm not going to have time to be able to give to my music at this time. I'm a mum now. I've got to attend to the baby. I'm getting these songs recorded. I'm getting it out there, and I'm so glad I did. I love Songs for the Soul. It's more of a storytelling album. They're both folk albums. But I write about other people's lives as well in Songs for the Soul, not only my own life. And I really love that album. I really love that one.
Awesome. So on that note, where can people go to find your beautiful music and your beautiful books, including the top 5 regrets of the dying?
BronnieWare.com. So it's like Bonnie with an R in it.
Yep.
Bronnie Ware, as in like warehouse. Very easy to remember the spelling, Ware, BronnieWare.com. My music's available through all digital stores, iTunes, Spotify, everything. My books are published by Hay House and a load of other publishers in other languages. They're actually making a movie out of the top 5 regrets of the dying.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's going to happen sometime, and it's underway already. But yeah, BronnieWare.com, and I have an online course which is all about creating your regret-free life. So putting all the tools that I've learned into making them personal for other people.
Awesome. And I want to recommend everybody to go out and get your book. I'm already recommending it to all of my coaching clients. I'm like, yeah, well, I wasn't sure until I read it. You need to read it.
Yeah. Well, we actually have a second edition coming out in August 2019, because 5 Regrets was never edited. I released it independently. At the time, I didn't have the money for an editor. And then when Hay House took it on, they didn't want to lose the wave that I was creating. So they released it unedited, which just shows you that you don't have to follow rules. And this book has sold, it's reached over 1 million people worldwide. So, but now we're just doing a little bit of a tidy up, and we're releasing a second edition in August 2019. So I'd love people to get the first edition as well now, so they can actually read it in its most raw and vulnerable state.
Yeah, and I would say you do not want to wait, because then you'll be living with guilt and regret.
Yeah.
So, on that note, what one homework assignment would you give people today so that they can take action based on what they're hearing?
Face the fact that you're going to die. Just realize that you're on limited time, and sit down and think, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? That's as simple as that, and as difficult as that.
It's powerful. It's scary. I think it's a good challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
On that note, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
My daughter's giggle. Yeah. Knowing not only that I dared to bring her into the world, because I was 44 when she was conceived, and 45 when she was born. And so, some people are saying, you're not serious, you're not going to do this. that I had this calling to bring a child through at that time in my life. So not only that I gave her life, but when I hear her giggling, then I think, well done, Mama, you're doing a good job. Yeah. So that brings me the greatest joy.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Bronnie, this has been amazing, fantastic. Your book there's a reason it's reaching millions of people. It's so important and it's so beautiful. Any
Thank
last,
you.
oh, you are most welcome.
Mhm.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Just understand that courage is always rewarded. Live a courageous life as best you can, because we're all scared, but courage is rewarded in ways we cannot even imagine. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to give you a big hug.
Yeah. From LA to you as well.
Thank you so much, Bronnie. Thank you so much. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get top 5 regrets of the dying, and begin living a courageous life today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Michael. What a great interview. Thank you. Bless you.
Bless you as well. And I am so glad that you took the time in the midst of your travels to make time for us today. I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. I almost didn't, because it's been so long trying to work out these time zone differences, and yeah, but it was meant to be, and it's been a joy for me just to realise your own wisdom, which doesn't always come out from people doing interviews. So thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel, where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much, and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!